where you stand on this, Joe George, our Astros opening day countdown question. How do you feel about the early returns of Dana Brown?
I think overall they're pretty positive, but I do think that he's quickly going to lose the fan base their trust.
Why?
I just think he's oversharing. And like the Kyle Tucker, it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, he's confident that Kyle Tucker is going to get signed long term. Now you've set expectations for the fan base, and you're having to publicly walk that back and say you're less confident. Yesterday, he said that today we would know if there was a chance Fromber and Kyle Tucker are signed before the end of spring training. I think you're now setting the bar for yourself too high. Like, I'm on Fromber alert. I've got the breaking news sounder ready to go that immediately in the next 2.5 hours, like, Fromber Valdez might sign a long-term contract with the Astros. I think he's just – I think it's great. I like that he's sharing so much. I just think that if he fails to sign these guys, he's going to lose the fan base because then no one's ever going to believe him again. Every time he goes out and says, I think we're close to signing Jeremy Pena, or we're trying to lock up Jeremy Pena, everyone's going to go, well, I don't believe you because you said that about Tucker, you said about Bregman, you said about Altuve, and if you don't do it, then he's like hurting his own stock.
Yeah, it's like the boy who cries wolf. Like, you say it so many times and you don't get it done, you don't execute it, then people are going to stop believing it. And I understand that. I just don't feel like that's really anything tangible to the good or bad or the positive or negative detriment of the organization going forward. Quite frankly, the fans' opinions aren't going to matter. Like, they didn't like when Carlos Correa left. Jeremy Pena was outstanding in his rookie year. Didn't like when Garrett Cole left. The Astros have won a World Series since. So the fan base approval rating, quite frankly, does not matter. It shouldn't matter.
That's fair.
I don't care about it. It's not tangible. Now, I agree that it potentially could happen if all of these dudes eventually leave via free agency and Brown is sitting there talking too much. We haven't seen a whole lot of Dana Brown. So everything that we're basing our judgment on is basically trying to get a read on him, trying to get a tell on him, listening to him talk and trying to figure out what he's going to be like as a general manager. The only big thing that he's done really to date, and not to say he should be doing a lot of things, he's only a few months on the job, was the Christian Javier extension. 5 years, $64 million. I look at that extension, you look at the AAV of what Christian Javier is going to cost you, less than $13 million, and we all think is going to be one of the best pitchers in the American League. That was a steal. That was a great signing by Dana Brown, and he becomes a free agent after the age of 30. Dana Brown, maybe he was oversharing, but Chandler Rome putting these quotes together from Dana Brown, I'm assuming from West Palm Beach, Florida, he made it known yesterday that he's not willing to do long-term deals, like huge deals, or deals that take a player to their mid-30s. Here was Dana Brown, some quotes from Chandler Rome in today's Houston Chronicle. I think Jim is willing to go further. I just don't know that I have the comfort of going as long as, say, maybe I'll have to get Tucker done. I just don't like big deals. If they're open for something a little more than 5, maybe I would be open to do that. I'm sure Jim would be too. I think Jim is very open, but doing 10-year deals, I don't know if we'll ever get to that point. That's a lot of years, man. I'm not comfortable doing 10. That aligns with my philosophy as well. He also said, I don't mind doing 10 if you get a guy to the big leagues in the early 20s. Kind of like Jeremy Pena. Really feel like he's a big piece of the franchise, face of the franchise, get him done for 10, and he finishes out at 32, 33. I'm okay with that. These deals that go beyond 33 for me, I'm uncomfortable. The analytics on that is not good. I understand that my philosophy on signing players in their mid-30s is a little bit more on the minority side. I know that that's not the overwhelming popular opinion. I don't believe you should sign players to big deals into their mid-30s. I love what I'm hearing from Dana Brown, quite frankly. I'm falling in love with the guy.
Okay, look, I agree with everything you said. And I think that the one thing that frustrates me, I like what you said, and I like what Dana Brown said more about the fact, and it definitely, I'm sure Jim Crane likes it too, because that definitely aligns with his philosophy as well. But I wish when they get so analytical that they don't necessarily owe it to the media to tell you why he said what he said, but in negotiations, you can even bring it up and say, look, from past history, statistically and otherwise, these deals never give you the return on the investment in the last, here's the statistics and the return on investment in the last year of the deal, the last 3 years of the deal, the last 5 years of the deal. Because more times than not, the percentages line up to where you can say, and you can break it down and back it up with numbers to say, hey, look, we love certain player. We love player X, and he's been a part of our past. We want him a part of our future. But we're not going to do something that makes him such a part of our future that it keeps us from going forward as an organization. And that's where I think that's where Crane and Dana Brown line up, and I think that's where the best teams in baseball are going to have to line up from this day going forward in terms of the new era of Major League Baseball and management. Because we've seen Pujols, and we've seen, matter of fact, it's going to be real interesting now to get this new generation of these monster contracts and see how many of them on the back end are going to be productive. Because
baseball's wisened up, though, as like an industry where they're doing it when players are young in their early to mid-20s as opposed to like when dudes enter that first year of free agency and doing it when they're 29, 30 years old.
They are.
So that's one thing that the industry's wisened up on.
And we know Miguel Cabrera and we know that Pujols are two of the big glaring ones that, stick out in everybody's mind as ones that just completely backfired. But I think even to your point, Jeremy, when you start factoring in injury as well as production, it's still going to be real interesting to monitor because I think that the back end of those deals are going to be very, very harmful to a lot of franchises, especially if, God forbid, guys endure injuries and either they have to walk away from the game and retire or they're not the same player. I mean, look, J-Rod's a hell of a player and they wrapped him up and that was really smart. But guess what? He's already now, right after he signed the contract, having back issues. If you deal with this 4 or 5 years down the road and those become nagging, ailing back injury issues, the return on investment's going way down, and the deal's not going to look quite as advantageous in the favor of the Mariners.
But it's safer when you do when a player's 23 as opposed to 29.
Sure,
because
sure.
Their peak, their prime, it's extended a little bit, or you're getting the heyday of his heyday.
A decade deal at 29 is asinine right now.
Whereas 23, it makes sense.
Sure,
now they're becoming a free agent at 33. Like again, we haven't seen a whole lot of Dana Brown. Is he a little bit loose-lipped? Yeah, I think it's fair to say he's loose-lipped. Has it been detrimental? I don't think that that's provable right now, quite frankly. The three things that I do like so far from Dana Brown, the Christian Javier deal was a steal. I love that contract extension. It's not quite as good as Jordan, although if Jordan can't get on the field. But the Christian Javier deal is really good. I agree with Dana Brown that I don't want 10-year deals, and I agree with Dana Brown that I don't want to have these huge contracts for players in their mid-30s. I like what I've seen early. The early returns for me are good.